Hello, everybody. It's nice to see you. Alright, that was my very quick and brief Arnold Schwarzenegger impression. I just love doing impressions of his voice. Now, my real voice sounds pretty good, but with my voice all high-pitched, it sounds quite hilarious sometimes, depending on how I do it. So anyway, this is my first testimony for the YouTube community, and whoever decides to tune in. It's going to be about who you are, who we are, who the real person is on the inside. That's right, the inside of you. And no, I'm not going to lay you down on a couch and ask you about your emotions. This isn't a psych session. I just think that everyone should get a new perspective on who they are and who they should be. As always, this is just my opinion. So what makes you you? Let's start with the fact that most of us are hiding behind a facade. Whether it be with your parents, your friends, your coworkers, or just a random stranger off the street. Or your girlfriend or boyfriend. There's always a code of conduct that changes in each situation. And I don't believe it's necessarily correct, though it can keep you very comfortable in your own skin. But deep down, you know you're hiding something. Now, I know that this world tends to look down upon someone blatantly expressing their own opinion. People have very vivid views of what should be done about those people. But I don't care about those people. I mean, I care about them in the sense that I appreciate that they live by what they believe, but I don't believe in what they believe. I don't believe that they should be imposing their beliefs on other people, because everyone has a right to believe whatever they want to believe. We are not owned by anyone. And sadly, we end up becoming owned by other people, by fads and cliches. Society has brainwashed a lot of individuals into thinking they need to rise to a certain standard or lower themselves to a certain standard in order to fit in. Well, that's a kind of being owned. That's a kind of being a slave. God forbid any of them admit to that, but that's what's really going on. But I'm not here to talk about that. What I want to talk about is who you are. And what have you been through in your life to turn you in to who you are today? That's who's really on trial right now. Is it really necessary to hide behind a facade? Now, I'm not talking about everyone's doing such a thing, but most of us are. And given the circumstance, sometimes it's necessary, especially if you're trying to save the life of someone. You have to be a little deceptive to keep them from being hurt. But that's another matter entirely. I'm talking about just being yourselves in general around average people within average circumstances, such as everyday life, going to work, going to school, having fun, meeting friends, doing chores, the usual stuff. I could be a lot more monotonous with my analogies, but I think you get the point. We need to look at how we perceive others just as much as how we perceive ourselves. And once we can understand who we are, then, and only then, I believe, we can start passing some kind of judgment on other people. Granted, it's not an absolute judgment. Most people make absolute judgments just from looking or glancing at another human being, and that's wrong. Everyone has a right to be who they are. We shouldn't be criticizing someone just because we don't believe what they believe. It's not right. I'm not even speaking about tolerance here. I'm talking about the simple right that everyone has to be an individual. And we need to really look inside of ourselves and pick apart what makes us an individual. Are we simply following the traits given to us by the path of our lives? Or are we making our own path in our lives? Why are we holding ourselves and each other to expectations? Why? Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. There should be no real expectations except growth. No person doing the same thing is going to be stagnant with it, unless they choose to be stagnant with it. We should be finding a way to see each person as a new, unique individual, not as some collective, I don't want to say idol, a collective ornament, if you will, on this circle of life, this tree of life. No one is just another ornament. Every person has their place. Every person has their positive and negative effect on the balance of life. Now, you can disagree with me if you want. That's fine. But that's my view. And whenever we pass judgments and expectations on those people, on our neighbors, when we pass judgment on them, we are hindering their potential. We're telling them they're not good enough for this or for that, that they need to crawl under a rock and just disappear. And that's not fair. That's not fair to yourself, and that's not fair to them. Because you're hurting yourself when you do that. Those judgments go both ways. And the reason you're acting that way, the reason you're judging those other people, is because of your own internal struggle with who you are. And I guarantee you, if you think hard and long enough about why you do the things that you do, you will grasp a different understanding of why you say the things that you say, why you assume, why you misconceive and misperceive ideas and situations. You will see, and you will understand, if you look hard enough, and you want to look hard enough. There's always room for change in this world, and it starts with you. It doesn't start with anybody else. Everything that's happened to you in your life is not the result of someone else. It's because you attracted it to yourself in some way, shape, or form. Now, granted, there are special circumstances and exceptions to that rule, but generally speaking, you are responsible for the life that you have now, and you need to take responsibility for that life and not let anyone else tell you how to live that life. Now, there's a difference between someone telling you and someone helping you. Sometimes it may seem as though someone is trying to hinder your growth, when in actuality, they're trying to help you get somewhere in your life. And it may seem as though that they're stonewalling you, but they're really not. There's not really any good examples I can give you. You're going to have to figure out those kinds of circumstances for yourself. The only real thing that's going to let you know if they're doing it for your own good is if their motives are not selfish. And that's pretty easy to tell. Usually it's if the person is extremely belligerent, meaning if the person is trying to get you to do something by any means possible, and I mean by any means, even if it's really, really hurting you or the people around you, then it's probably selfish. If there's a point where they actually communicate with you what they want, and they're telling you why they're doing it, then that's the point at which you can say, okay, they're probably just trying to help me. But I'm going to be going more of that in the next testimony. This concludes the first part of the Who Are You testimony. The next part will be about life and how you can apply the things that I've mentioned in your life and how you can perceive them differently than you do right now. All right, until part 2.